This is Groove Talk with Froggy Style.
Welcome to another episode of Groove Talk, everybody. On this episode, I am joined by Dave, and he is part of the band The Night Terrors.
Hi, Cody. Thanks so much, man. I'm really looking forward to talking with you.
Yeah, me too. This is actually one of the, I think this is the first interview that I've done online, so this will be a cool experiment for me too. So
yeah, I'm actually not even a real person. I'm an AI, and this is where I live now. This is my ecosystem.
Yeah.
You've technically allowed me into your network now, so
it's okay. I've probably allowed worse things into my network, so awesome. So just to start, I guess, why don't you give a little bit of background information on the Night Terrors and also yourself?
Yeah, we're a three-piece band based in Calgary, Alberta. We started in around 2017 when Kurt and I kind of left our band Deluge, and at the time we had known Nathan through playing a bunch of shows and kind of with his band In Search of Sasquatch. And one night at Burger King, Nathan just kind of popped in, and Kurt and I were like eating dinner after a show, and we just got talking. We hit it off right away, and me and Kurt were like, we should really ask that guy to be in our band. And we basically were like, no, he'll never go for it. Like, he's out of our league, kind of thing. And we pitched a jam to him, like, hey, you should just come for a jam. And he actually lived like 7 houses down from where Kurt and I were jamming. Like, that was we felt like we're like, all these cards are aligning. It was like the universe wanted this to happen. So as soon as we had that first jam, in that first jam we actually wrote like one of our first songs, Grand Distraction, which like kicks off the album we just released. And I think for us, we were like, I think there's something here. Like, you kind of have those feelings in life where it kind of feels like you're like struck by electricity in some ways. And I think that was like one of the clear times that I was like, I think there's really something unique here, something different.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I mean, the best bands come together, I feel like, in the easiest ways, you know? You don't want to like force your bandmates.
It's so true. It's so true. It's like, they always say a band is like a marriage, right? But meeting a band and like deciding to be one, it's almost harder than getting married or falling in love, you know? It's like you have all these different personalities, you all have to come together into a room, and then it all has to satisfy everyone's like creativity and where they want to go. And it's just something magical when that happens, you know, and you guys do something that you all really like.
Yeah, no, totally agree. So did you find it difficult at all? Because, you know, you two were from a previous band and you're adding this third. Was there any kind of, I don't want to say tension, but like, was there any kind of differences there, I guess? Or
I think for us, like, Kurt and I went in to the Night Terrors with like a totally different mindset than like what we were doing before in Deluge. And, you know, for us, we had this like vision where we wanted to do dual vocals. Like, we wanted to be like Hall & Oates or Taking Back Sunday, you know, these bands that when you like listen to the singers, you're like, how did they write this, right? Like, it's so intricate and it's so reliant on each other. And I think with that like mindset, it really kind of just put us in a different spot than where we were with Deluge. And with Deluge, it was very much like I would like write the songs and Kurt and Anthony would like help arrange them. But with the Night Terrors, it felt more like we would just show up with like these rhythms and we would just build off of that, you know. And even the writing of the lyrics for our songs, like, a lot of people actually don't know, but like Nathan's like a really prolific lyricist too, like our drummer, and like he writes a lot of lyrics in Search of Sasquatch too. So for the first time, like, I was writing with Kurt, like me and him would go over and write lyrics and parts, and like the way Kurt would sing stuff would change the way I would want to write a song, right? Because like he would say a word differently, or he'd have a melody, or he'd sing things differently, and it made it so much better. And then even after that, we would have Nathan come in and write right afterwards, right? And kind of change up words and phrasings, and reorganize even structures of how we were kind of presenting the story of the song. And I've never written like that ever before. So I think instead of like having this weird tension where, Kurt and I had these like preconceived roles already, and now it was like someone coming in, it was a totally flat surface. It was like a brand new reality for us.
Oh, that's awesome. So I guess you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I guess how do the Night Terror songs kind of come together?
Yeah, I think for me, the main thing has been like, number one, like I was like in the last 3 years, I was like, I gotta do something about like my anxiety and everything in my life. And like I started actually going to like see a therapist about it and stuff. And the process of that was like, hey, you have to write down your thoughts and like how your train of thoughts go to these places, right? That like cause anxiety in your life. And for the first time, instead of like feeling like I was like letting the song pull me along, I felt like for the first time I was bringing these kind of ideas generally to things. And I was like, I like look back on my notes of things I wanted to talk about, and like there was just these song ideas there, and instead of me like structuring them out and writing them exactly how I wanted them to sound, I would instead bring these riffs. And me and Kurt and Nathan honestly would spend half the practice just talking about our life, like what was going on. And that was totally new, right? Like we were like almost better friends than a band even. And these like the conversations we would have and the things that I would like bring, and next thing you know, like this riff we're working on, like Nathan like, oh, we should, you should sing about that, like that's what we should write the song about. And then that would start pulling that song in a new direction. And so yeah, for me, like it was totally this different perspective of the songwriting process, where instead it was we brought just little pieces and then we all arranged them together.
Wow, that's awesome. It's interesting how like arts can be like that kind of like cathartic thing that we all need, like no matter what it is that you do, it can be such an outlet for your like anxieties and your emotions basically. And it's a real, I guess, cool thing that you can come together in a group like that and you can all kind of share your like emotions and your stresses and your anxieties, but then you can also make these cool songs out of it as well.
Yeah, I think that's why we wanted to call the record like Songs to Keep You Up at Night, because like the things we wrote about were the things that actually kept us up at night, right? Like those little stresses, little anxieties, right? So we thought like how poetic it was to like, hey, these are the songs that will hopefully keep you up at night too, or like make you think about life. And like you're totally right. I know when I love a song, I feel like probably my interpretation of it is way different than what they wrote it about. And that's the beautiful part about music. I always like struggle because like we'll play shows and sometimes people will ask me to like write out our lyrics of our songs. And I'm almost hesitant to, because I don't know if you're like me, but sometimes I'll mishear a lyric, and the lyric I misheard is almost more important to me than what they actually wrote at the time. And so I wanted that to be for everyone else. Like if you've heard me say this and you think it sounds that way, like that's perfect. Like I hope that means a lot to you, and like and you've taken that piece of the art for yourself,
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. It's like each song is going to mean something different to each person, right? And you don't want to take away any of the magic for that person,
Yeah, totally.
Even if it is just by like clarifying something, or like you said, a missed word could change the entire meaning of a song, like
yeah. I mean, music has this like profound impact on us, right? Like it forms our memories, like it brings us back to times in our life. It gives us like a sense of satisfaction when there's really like, if you think about it from like a biological point of view, there's nothing like, you don't get a reward from listening to a song other than what you make of it, right? In your own mind. And to me, like that's the beauty of music, and that's the beauty of like why I love making albums, is that you get to be a part of everyone's mind in some way, right? Like what you do will go on and have an impact for a person, and it'll be a beautiful mix of their mind and yours,
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And like, I mean, we all have those songs in our lives that just, they come on and they trigger something within us, you know, that brings us back to maybe a happy time or a sad time, or it helps us get through things, like whatever it may be, you know. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a hard perspective, but I always tell like myself, especially in my friends, like, you know, when someone's going through a breakup or, you know, something happens in your life that's like really sad or really happy, it's like you just have to kind of remind yourself that in the moment it sucks. But like listen to the songs you love, like listen to new music, like challenge yourself, because a year from now you're going to look back on that time and be really glad that you got to feel all of these emotions at like peak volume, you know?
yeah, no, totally. So just kind of touching on that subject, what are the kind of maybe some of the songs or some of the bands that like help you get through kind of some of those tougher times?
Yeah, for me, like this record, I think like there's two really well, I think three like prolific songs that like really shaped like what I wanted to do on Sonskeep M Night. And like the first one for me was Electric Light Orchestra's Ticket to the Moon. And I don't know if you've ever heard that song, but it is like a sci-fi romp about, you know, it sounds like the disintegration of a space station, I have to say, on the outside. But like the vastness of what they've done with like melody and instrumentals, it just triggers this feeling in yourself that like you may be insignificant in those moments, but what you choose to do has these like long lasting implications in those moments. And so like that song coming into it was really weird for me, because those aren't my traditional influences on music, you know? And I think like for us, like we grew up in a time where like we listened to Alexis on Fire and like Taking Back Sunday and those bands that had that energy and emotion to them. But for us, like another important song, like the whole band, what I really found important was you know, Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears. And so much so, like we were even like talking, like, do we go back to studio and just cover it and put it to end the album, right? Like it's the last song as you drift out, right? But I think like you can even hear that influence of like Everyone Wants to Rule the World on songs like that we did, like Laughing on Mute and you know, 27 Club and things like that. And I think like the third song that like really like informed what we wanted to do was I Can't Go For That, No Can Do by Hall & Oates. I don't know if you've ever heard that jam. There's also a legendary like version of it where Hall does it with Chromeo, so it's like Hall and Chromeo and they cover it together. And that song was like on repeat in the truck when we'd go on tour, and like we'd listen to it nonstop. It just the songwriting of that, right, of like the personal story they're telling, but like the dual vocal approach, like the atmosphere of it, like we were really like we wanted to make an album that wasn't just pop punk, you know, like we really wanted to challenge ourselves and go, okay, like I know we sound that way on the outside, like I know, you know, even the Herald called us power pop, right, but can we challenge ourselves and dig deep and create these atmospheric songs and sometimes throw out the pop hooks, right, that you kind of rely on, and just try and actually tell a story and create instrumentals that drone or create this place that you kind of feel like you're nuzzled in it, you know? And I think that like that for us was like really what we wanted to go for on this record, was to create that smoky atmosphere.
Cool. Yeah, no, I would definitely say that you guys have some like pop punk some sounds to it, but I would say that it's like almost pop punk with like an edge, you know, like it's not like quite like bubblegum pop punk, you know, it's got like an edge to it, which is kind of cool.
Well, thank you so much for saying that, because like constantly, you know, when we're called pop punk or anything, I think like there's that tendency for people to like, to write it off, right? Like pop punk can't really hit artistry, which I think is totally like it's wrong, right? Like there's so many pop punk records that I think, you know, because the band started out that way, that were kind of written off, that really like had some depth to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. Like honestly, for anybody who just writes pop punk off just out of hand, I feel like that's silly, because some of the best I don't know, at least some of the best music that I heard in my teen years were, those pop punk jams like Blink 182 and stuff like that. And that's what I grew up with, right? So
Yeah, for sure. I think like our generation, we were the first ones to actually see like a change in the mentality of like masculinity in music in a lot of ways too. Like, the whole emo genre that came out, when you like look back and like listen to like a My Chemical Romance song, it's actually not all that emo compared to like music that's on the radio today. But like when you compared it to like the early 2000s, when like, Trapped and Headstrong and like, all these songs where guys couldn't talk about what they were feeling, but instead just like the situations they were in, right? Like they would be like, I have to run away from home. I can't deal with these emotions. Like those were like the themes, right? And instead, music like took that right hand turn where it's like, you know what? Like this feels terrible. And I think looking back on it, right? Like a lot of those bands got unfairly painted with like the emo brush, but nowadays you listen to it, you're like, they're just dudes feeling something, and they're singing about that. And that's good,
Yeah. Yeah. Music went through like a kind of like a weird time in the 90s. You know what I mean? Like it was very like vapid and like kind of shallow, and it was just all about, and then like kind of like grunge came in and like pop punk and like all this stuff, and it was like way more emotional, and it was cool. It was like finally something that I can like relate to instead of just like bob my head along to.
Yeah, like it's like, oh wait, you guys are feeling this too? That's interesting.
Yeah, no, totally. So when you guys do sit down to like write songs and stuff, are you ever aiming for a certain sound, or is it just kind of like what comes out?
Oh God, like I would love to be 10 different bands than what we sound like, and every single time I try to, it sounds the same, like it just kind of has the same 90s singe to it, and it's so, I don't know why, and I spent a lot of time trying to fight that by like, okay, next album, like we have to try and sound like this, we have to try and sound like these bands. But instead, for us, I think it just caused more stress than it really added to the experience. And I think we like learned, it's like, hey, keep our influences close, like enjoy the songs that we're really enjoying in those moments, and try and look for the moments when we write that we can channel what we love about those songs, but it's going to sound like the way we sound as people, right? And I hope that as we grow, like we evolve and the sound changes with us, and we start to offer more and more perspective and just different ways that we would want to play songs. But I think for us, we just go into it with the mentality that it's more important to have something that we want to say to people than it is that we want to sound like to people.
Yeah, for sure. It's like authenticity is huge, you know what I mean? Especially in music, I feel. It's like the moment that you try to, emulate someone else or sound like someone else, it just comes across like fake, Not saying that like you can't take influence from somebody else, but it's like when you try to like copy or kind of emulate, that it kind of starts to come across maybe a little bit fake.
Oh yeah, and I think you see bands fall into that trap all the time. Like they'll come out and be like, "We're going to go for more of a pop sound on this. We're warning you guys about it." And I just think it's the wrong way to go about it, right? Like you can make an album, right, and you can invite people along on that journey. But like kind of like we talked about at the start, the way people interpret that album, the way people take it into their own lives, it's going to be on their terms, So yeah, I always think it's more important for us, like when we're writing songs, to have that story behind it, right? And to have something that I want to say, because to me, that's what makes an album special. And it's kind of nerve-wracking. It's like kind of like you publish a journal for everyone to see. That's like snapshot of your life, right? It's like anyone can go into your bedroom and like flip your mattress and find like a journal you're writing of your thoughts, It's a weird thing being in a band that way.
Yeah. Hey, I totally get that, man, because I'm literally talking for hours on end, just putting my thoughts out onto the internet, and it's terrifying.
I honestly think what you do is more terrifying than even being in a band, because like you're exactly right. Like people can like follow your life along in those moments. You're like, you personalize your exact thoughts on music, right? Like behind who you are. At least like with the Night Terrors, I get to hide behind like a logo or a name sometimes, right? Like I can like push the blame onto Kurt and Nathan if something goes wrong,
Yeah.
For you, you're definitely definitely, you're out there. You're on the vines.
Yeah, it's pretty scary sometimes, but you know, you learn those things that help you deal with it. So,
Well, I think it's so cool too. I mean, and I feel like getting to talk to you about like what we do with music helps bring it to like another level, you know. And what you do is so important. It's more important than any band or anything else. It's like accessing music from a different place, and I think it just really brings the art form to a new level.
yeah, no, and it's exactly what I wanted to do with this podcast too, was just to delve into the music, because I love music, and like people write it for different reasons, they produce it for different reasons, and I wanted to know, you know, why are you writing this, or how did it come together, like what were you feeling in that moment and stuff like that, you know. So
yeah, totally. And every band has like a unique story about it, which is weird when you think about the world. Like billions of people, all unique storylines. Sometimes they cross, sometimes they don't. It's when you think about how big the world actually is and how much music has probably been created, and even albums that have never been released, like ones that kind of half got started and dried up, that are probably masterpieces. It's actually kind of shocking.
yeah, no, it's crazy how much music is out there, and it's wonderful, and it's also like, I don't know, it can feel like it's putting maybe it's hard to find like real good stuff sometimes, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, sometimes you have to wade through like a lot of mediocrity to find like those hidden gems, you know?
Oh yeah. It's like sometimes it's like even going to like Vern's on a Friday night and you don't know the bill, you know, and you're like, I'm gonna find some gems and I'm gonna find some coal, but we don't know which one it'll be, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, because that's the good thing about Vern's is, well, again, it's the good and bad thing about Vern's is they will let anybody play on their stage. Like,
Oh yeah. I think it's like the cradle of civilization for Calgary music. It's like where every band starts and every band dies, you know? Like I always tell the guys, I'm like, I want our first show to be at Vern's and our last show to be at Vern's. No matter the outcome of our trajectory.
yeah, no, totally. So you guys had some EPs that you released. They were also called Songs to Keep You Up at Night. So you had Volume 1 and you had Volume 2.
Yeah.
So I guess kind of walk us through the decision process to kind of like combine those and then release it with some new songs into a full length.
Yeah. I think for us, when we started like writing this album, we had so many songs, even actually than what we actually included on the record itself. I think we have like 15 songs like written right now, and we love every single song, but Songs to Keep You Up at Night really meant something to us, right? Like we had this thought going into it that it's almost like a late night radio show. Like that's the premise we wanted to go for the record, is this late night radio show, and each song is like a different caller calling in, right? It's like a different personality. It's like a different part of ourselves. And when we started like putting these songs together and we started kind of plotting what we wanted to do, we started to find like the first volume of Songs to Keep You Up at Night, the first 3 songs, like Grand Distraction, 27 Club, and No No No. They all had the same kind of theme and the same kind of feeling to them, and we started to realize, we're like, I think there's like volumes here that we can do. Like we can release the first 3 songs on this volume, and they would fit really well in their ecosystem together. I think people would understand them, and they would listen to them, and each one would complement the other and kind of build off each other. And we wanted to do that because we knew we like really wanted to take our time with this record. Like I think it took us 3 years altogether to make sure we got it like 100% the way we wanted it. And so we thought, hey, let's do volumes. Like let's release these songs that are spiritually the same first, so that people have something to listen to when they come to shows and they can sing along. And then the second volume that came out too with Dreamer's Disease and Dance Dance Retribution. And we kind of felt like those vibed with each other too. And so what we really wanted to do was we wanted to put out the 2 volumes that we felt like had the most, the crowd, number one, liked the most. Like these are the songs that people would be singing back to us like when we would play. And even on Dreamer's Disease, like there's this line in the bridge where it's like it's a reference to the Simpsons episode where Bart loses his soul, and I even put that in. And like I swear, after like the 3rd show we played the song live, like our friends and these people in the audience would start just yelling that line back. Like it started to resonate with people and they picked up on it. So we were like, I want to put these out and I want people to like listen to them. But what we really wanted to do was save the album songs last before we tied it all up. And I think that's where we really added on when we finished the full length. We added like I Think You're Right, Songs on Mute. And there's one more that's slipping my mind that we added. And what we wanted was these were the songs that I felt made the album. Like they were the songs that I don't think immediately stand out, but are the ones that like you would like listen to when you were listening through the album. And after like the third listen, I think people would really start appreciating like what they were saying and what was happening with the instruments and the arrangement of them. So for us, what we wanted to do was release the first 2 volumes, and then once we had the 9 songs, and we always like, I think for us, we're just always going to do 9 songs. Like we'll never do any other amount of songs on an album because I just think it's funny to have always 9, you know, and it feels like a good number. 9 feels like a really good number for an album. And what I wanted to do was like, we just wanted to make sure we mixed and mastered the whole album to flow into each other really well. And I think that we took that from like one of the bands that I really loved, which was Balance and Composure. They have this album that just, you listen to it front to back and it is like one song almost, like the way the songs drift into each other. And that's what we really wanted on this record too, was that we wanted every song to blend really well and everything to go together. So after the volumes were released, we just made sure that we took the time to mix and master all the songs in the way that complemented each other and flowed into each other and really finished that album. And I think we got it right. Probably at times, honestly, we probably spent too much time on it. Like we you know, like there's things like I'd be like, oh, okay, but you know, there's too much reverb on my voice here. There's not enough here. And we would just constantly second guess what we were doing and stuff. But I have to say, like our producer, Chris Fawcett, did an immaculate job on the record, and I think he was honestly more invested even than we were at times. Like he would be like, no guys, we can't release the masters yet, like I have to go back and finish the work on the cymbals on the song. And I think that was like a really cool, like rewarding thing, is to like have Chris be so invested and love the music as much as he did, because that I think made it feel so much more special to like have that person in your corner, where traditionally if you do a record, the producer sometimes near the end is like, just put the songs out, you know, like they sound good, right? But I think Chris felt that way too with this record, which was really nice.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. It's like having like a 4th member of the band, you know?
Yeah, we always call Chris our 4th member. We even put him in the 27 Club music video, which is like the sci-fi Black Mirror inspired music video. Yeah. And I was like, man, like please do it, because I think it'd be so funny to actually have you like fill this role. Yeah.
Man, okay, I watched that music video like just before that. That is a fucking awesome music video. I like that.
I love it, man. I don't know, like one of my favorite moments being in a band was like when we were thinking of this video and we told Kurt to build a set in his like laundry room. We're like, hey, can you build like a tank set? And he was like, yeah, okay. And he just built this thing out of like cardboard and like dollar store lights, and like we got a fog machine to like blast inside and stuff. That was one of my favorite moments of Kurt as like one of my best friends, and just being in a band was just putting together that video, and everyone had so many funny ideas. Even like Rich McFarlane from like Julius Sumner Milner filmed it, like he was like on the camera. So it was just a really fun time to like have all these people that have been so much a part of the record do that video together.
Yeah It's like, man, one of my favorite moments is, I definitely got a chuckle out of it, is when you're loading the Deluge tapes in as ammo.
yeah, that was a good time. That was funny.
Yeah
We still have so many Deluge CDs, it's crazy.
Yeah. So I guess because you released kind of a string of music videos all there, I guess just kind of take us through maybe the thought process on that and how they kind of came together, because they're all really unique and they're all like awesome in their own way, I think. So
we're not even done yet. Like that's the funny part, is one of the things like I wanted to do with Night Terrors is a music video for every song, and we're still going to do it. Like I will film a video for every single song that we do, because to me, like I love playing live. Like I love going on tour. It's super fun to to meet new people and to have people be excited about your music and to do that stuff. But the ultimate thing of being in a band for me that I enjoy most is like making albums and making music videos. Like getting to tell stories on top of stories is like the best part of being in a band. And every single song that we've had, a music video presents that moment where you get to like reinterpret it and tell another story using that first one that you did on that song. And for us, like we started out with Grand Distraction being this just like, we wanted to be a grand distraction. Like we were like, how funny would it be just to change outfits and to be in these like ridiculous situations? And the idea would be this video like takes away from the message of the song itself, right? Which is that you're yourself, like everything that you do distracts you from what you really are trying to say or trying to do, you know? And we just tried to think of every song differently and try and do that, you know, with 27 Club and the Black Mirror music video. Like the undercurrent of that song is that like you lose yourself, right? And like there's that lyric like, you know, ring me like a bell, bring me down to your own personal hell, right? Like to me it's like whenever you like sacrifice part of yourself, you when you're not true to yourself, like you lose that ability next time for you to really figure out what you want, right? Like you just kind of give in. And I thought the Black Mirror, digitizing your soul, like literally losing a part of your soul going into a computer, was just such like a fun play on that song, right? Is to hook on to that part of the story and then just reinterpret in a different way and make it lighter, make it funnier, right? And kind of offer that other side of it too, where it doesn't always have to be like the salty approach to music. It can be the sweet too, right? You can have fun and tell jokes about it. So I think like for us, we always try and look at the songs, then we just try and figure out what would be like the undercurrent of it, what would be the thing that we can also tell a story about on top of it.
No, that's cool. Yeah, I dig the music videos, and I like that each one's different in its own way, and each one is unique, and like they're obviously DIY, but they're still really well done, you know, like
I love that we like, I don't know why we have the tenacity to be like, let's film a music video, you know, ourselves, but I don't know. Like I love the DIY element of it, right? And even like on that video, what we did with the lightning, where we were like, we could actually probably buy better effects, but we're like, no, we need this to look as bad as possible, like as 90s, like raw wrestling as possible with this lightning that appears on the screen.
Yeah, no, they're great. I really enjoy them, and I like that, you know, YouTube and the internet have kind of provided us with this kind of like, I guess, median where we can like resurrect the music video, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so weird because like, don't you find like bands are making the same music video like over and over? Like that's the thing that I think that we've talked about too. It's like, it's so true. The internet's giving you so many opportunities to make videos and to do this stuff. But every band like is in like, you know, a garage or like a warehouse with like a one single light swinging above, right? And they're playing in this like dirty garage, and it's just a performance video. And I'm like, why not take that opportunity to like just try and tell a story or do it just a bit different, right? Like really think about it. And I think that it's such a missed opportunity for so many times for so many bands, because I think that, you know, people, when they start watching that video over and over, it starts to mean less to them too for other bands and stuff. And I think that like as a whole, musicians like at our level, like when we're emerging, we're doing this, can like really challenge themselves to like try and add something different to that realm, that landscape of videos, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. And well, it's kind of like, it's like, you know, there is the music side of any album or any band, but then you also have to kind of pay attention to, you know, the visual side of it, you know, whether it be album artwork or t-shirt designs or whatever it is. That's what's going to like grab people's attention and get them to maybe listen in, you know, like.
Yeah. We always think it's like, don't cheap out on graphics, you know, like we have graphic artists that we love, and like I'm constantly on places like Reddit or things like that. When I see an artist I really like, when they post something, like I'll hunt them down and ask them to like, work with us on designs and stuff, because I think that it is so important to have that uniqueness about your artwork, because it is such an important part of what you are too when you make that music.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I think I really appreciate it when bands pay attention to, I guess, their image, it's, and not to say that in like a pretentious way, like, oh, we really care how we look, but like, there is an image that you are kind of trying to, like, as much as it sucks, we have to think of, bands and stuff like that. You have to think of it as a brand, you know what I mean? Like, and as much as people don't want to maybe think about it like that, that's just like the reality of the times we live in, like.
Yeah. Well, and it's so funny, like, I know exactly where you're going with it, because like when you say brand or image, like, people think like that means haircut, that means like style clothes, and it's not that at all. It's like as simple as like one of my favorite bands, Thursday. They have the Mechanical Dove, and they've had it on almost every single album and interpretation of it. And I remember when I saw them live, and their background, like right before they came out, was just like the Mechanical Dove dropped. It filled you with that sense of awe, and you're so right. Like that image that they carry, and that they did, and they made sure that it meant something, and it carried along with them as everything they did. It really triggers that, and I think that bands don't really think about that as much, and it is such an important thing.
Yeah. It's like, back in junior high or elementary school, we all had those bands or whatever that we would scribble in our notebooks, and they had recognizable symbols, like Pink Floyd had the prism and stuff like that, and AC/DC had the way that they wrote their name, and it was like, it's memorable imagery that really kind of like helps you get into, it's like the gateway to the music,
Yeah. I don't know about you, but like back in like junior high, I don't know if I just never thought about it. Like I was like, I should look up pictures of what these bands look like, but I never did. I would just like listen to these bands, and you would have the artwork of the band and everything, but you would never know what they looked like or what they were doing. And yeah, like you would like paint these pictures in your mind of like probably what they looked like. And like, it was such a cool time where that mystery could be ingrained in the music itself. I always tell Kurt and Nathan, I'm like, I almost don't even love when we include pictures of ourselves, because I think that relying on other imagery and relying on colors and those things, like, it just creates so much more mystique for people, and it makes you more interesting if you can do it right,
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's like back when we were growing up, it was, right kind of on the cusp of the internet, it wasn't like, so it was like you couldn't just like look anything up and be like, oh yeah, no, it looks like that or whatever, you had arguments and stuff because you couldn't just Google stuff.
Yeah. You had to be like bound and determined to look it up if you had to. And then most of the time you're like, whatever, I'm just gonna go home and play Super Smash Brothers,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that's awesome. So I guess when you are, how important is it for your songs to contain a message, I guess?
For me, like, I think that to me is the golden rule of songwriting, and at least, I mean, if not for everyone else, at least for yourself, right? Because I think that separates you from just playing in your basement for yourself, for your own enjoyment, or versus actually trying to make an album for people to enjoy, is having some type of conviction of like what you're saying means something and needs to be said, And for us on that record, Songs Keep You Up at Night, we would, like, when we'd go on the road and we'd play, like, we would listen to AM radio coming home at night, because we would have to drive home so we could work the next day, right? And when we like listen to AM radio, people would have this almost confessional tone on those shows, like whether it was like Coast to Coast, like talking about like a paranormal experience they had, or like whether it was like a psychology shows that you'd pick up in the States, right? On AM. Each person calling in had this like feeling about them that, like, what they were saying was, it would be heard by someone, but probably never by their friends and family. You know what I mean? Like, they were like, I can get full on crazy here, and it's not going to blow back when I go into work the next day, And I think, like, I fell in love with that kind of feeling of that story. And that for me was like what we wanted to do on this record. I wanted to be each part of myself and my personality to be this caller calling in, and each song has this different message about like what I was going through at the time, or what I'm thinking about, or what I'm feeling about. But each one has that confessional tone to it, right? That I'm trying to get across. And I hope that someone like listening to that record hears something about it and kind of has that feeling too of like, hey, I'm not alone. Like I think about that too, you know, it's normal. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of, it's funny that you say that, because it's like kind of, again, it's, you know, why I do the thing that I do, as like with the podcast, right? It's like, because podcasts really had kind of that effect, that same effect for me that you're just describing with the radio. It was like, you're now listening to these people and they're just like bearing their soul to you. And they're doing it to like, you know, maybe thousands of people, but it was just so real and raw, and it was just like, oh, there's other people who think about these things, or there's other people who feel this way, you know, and it was just so comforting for me personally. Like,
yeah, I think it's like I want to get your perspective on this, because I've listened to a bunch of episodes, like I listen to you a lot, so I feel like I've known you a little bit before I've even talked to you, which is probably like a weird thing that I'm like kind of coming at. Like I'm like, I already know Cody, right? Like this guy's kind of my friend already, but we've never really had a conversation outside of that, right? So is that weird for you at all when people kind of like talk to you about that? Like you're already so many people's friends, but you don't really know them on that level?
I mean, it's fine, because I do the same thing to other people, you know what I mean? Because like I follow so many bands' social media, and I'm always scouring like social media sites to just kind of like try and, you know, be like, who should I talk to, who should I be talking to, and stuff like that. So I feel like I'm doing the same thing, you know what I mean? I feel like I know some people, but I've never met them before, you know what I like?
What a weird feeling, hey?
Yeah.
Like I reached out to David Gray too, because like sometimes they feature like local music on CBC. I listen to CBC all the time, and it was actually funny. Like we played this show like a year back at Pizza Bob's for Beetroot at the time, and I guess David Gray was like in the audience. I'm a massive David Gray fan, but after we play, David Gray comes up to me and is like just saying like he really liked our band, like loved our songs, like was talking to me about songwriting and everything. I just think it's a regular guy, right? Because I can't really hear in the bar like the tone of his voice. I've never seen his face before, so I'm like, we're just talking like we're people, we're having a great time. I go home, Nathan like texts us like this link to David Gray's social media, and he's like posted about us and like taking a photo and everything. And I was like, David Gray was at the show, and he was like, man, you talked to him for like 10 minutes. And I was so sad. I was like, it's like I got to meet my like one of my best friends that I listen to every morning. Like I feel like I know David Gray as a person. And when I got to meet him, I didn't even get to like tell him like, hey man. And maybe it was for the best that I didn't get to like get all confessional on him. But it is a weird thing, right? Like that relationship. That's so cool that you do it too. I guess I've never thought about it that you would do the exact same thing, you know, on the other level, so you understand it in some ways. I always wonder if it'd ever take you off guard, you know?
Yeah. Well, sometimes it like, you know, when I'm out at a show or something and somebody comes up to me and they're like, oh, hey man, how's it going? And I'm like, oh, okay. Hey, because like, I'm a different person, you know, like I have anxiety and I'm kind of socially awkward and stuff, but when I'm like in front of a microphone, I'm like a completely different person, you know? I can have these conversations and it's no problem for me, right? But like when I'm out in the wild, it's a different story. So like when people approach me and, you know, they kind of want to chat, but I'm like at a show or something, I feel like I might disappoint people because I don't necessarily want to chat. I'm there to like listen to the music and stuff like that. So
man, you were the first person to ever like I feel the exact same way. And it's so nice to hear you say that too, because constantly like I'll feel like when I come off stage, like when I'm on stage, I'm a different person. Like I'll say jokes, like I'll say outrageous things, and you know, I love doing it. Like I love unlocking this part of myself that I don't get to a lot, like on that level. But then when I'm off stage, right, and I'm sweaty and like I probably smell terrible, and people come up and want and talk to you about the music, I always feel like in the back of my mind, I'm like, am I going to let them down? Like, do they expect me to be like the way I am on stage now? And, you know, like me and Nathan have had like really good conversations about that when we're on the road and stuff too. And he's like, we agree. It's just like people just want you to be nice, right? Like in the end of the day, like that's all we just really want is like to know that like, hey, like I see you, like you're a person too, right? And like, you have an immense value just by being here too, right? And we're all just people doing these weird things, you know? And once I kind of realized that, I think I pushed my anxiety down about that stuff a lot when I'm like, all I have to be is just a person, you know, and that'll be enough.
Yeah, no, it's totally the same way. And like this project has helped me like realize that, and it's helped me in a lot of ways to like get over kind of some social anxiety that I used to have. And I don't mind talking to people out there. It's just I'm not as talkative, you know, but like I love saying hi to people. I love to acknowledge that we're in the same venue, and I love being like, oh yeah, hey, what's up, you know? But it's just I don't necessarily want to have an in-depth conversation like I do on the podcast when I'm out there, you know?
Totally.
Yeah, so, but yeah, it's interesting because, and I feel like because we do something creative and we do kind of like put ourselves out there a little bit through our music or whatever our art may be, we do definitely realize that, you know, those little words of like reassurance, or, you know, just like, hey, I really like that song you wrote, or like you said before we started, like, hey, I've listened to some of your podcast, like that meant a lot to me, you know. It's nice to just like kind of know that somebody's listening, you know, like.
Oh yeah. I always tell people, like when they say like they'll reach out to me and like, hey, I love the album. And I always usually say the same, like it means the world to me. And I almost wonder if people like think I'm like, it's like hyperbole that I say it, but it honestly does, because like, you know, this, like when we do this stuff, like you don't know if you do a good job at all. Like you come off stage or you finish a show or whatever, you have no idea with a personal radar if something was good. And it means the world when someone comes up to you and is like, yes, like you did good. Like this is something that I enjoyed, and like you've given me an experience that I'm going to cherish or I'm going to appreciate in this moment. It literally means the world. So every time I say that, I'm like, and I'm not just saying that to say it, like it literally does. Anytime someone says something so nice about music that I write or anything that I do live, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I, you know, I think that it's hard for some people sometimes to like maybe approach bands. Because I mean, at least when I started this podcast, you know, I started inviting people over, and my thought instantly was like, man, these people are going to be like so much cooler than me. They're going to have their lives together like way more than me. You know what I mean? Like, but then you start talking to people and you just realize that everybody's just like a normal person, you know, everybody's just doing their best, you know? So
yeah. And we're all a little crazy. Like, I think that like artists have an innate, if they have something to say, it's because there's something innately wrong about them, which I think is a beautiful thing. It's like a mosaic of people and a mosaic of ideas. But yeah, I think that the normal folks are like the ones like, I don't know, you know, doing jobs out there that are like engineers or, you know, ones that have their life a little bit more in order.
Yeah. I like, honestly, after meeting so many different people, it's like, I don't know if there is a normal, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that there's like a normal that gets projected maybe in media or something, but nobody really fits that like kind of blanket statement of normal, you know?
That's like such a good point. You know, I know Casey Lewis from The Evidence, like has this really good, like, I don't know if it's like a thesis, maybe that's the appropriate word for it, about nerddom, where he was just like, you know, it was easier back in the day, like the 80s and 90s, to like, hey, you're a nerd because like you like something that's outside of like the stereotypical media norm, right? But as the internet exploded and everyone starts to realize this, like micro communities start popping up, everyone's a nerd about something. You can be a nerd about your own sports team. Like you can be a nerd about crocheting. Like you can be a nerd about music, you know, and it doesn't matter. Like we all just realize every person's passionate, and that's what being a nerd is just being passionate about about something in your life, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and those are the best people to talk to too. Is the people who are
Totally.
passionate about something. Like it doesn't matter what it is, but if you can tell that that person has passion towards whatever it is that it is, those are some of the best conversations to have.
Oh yeah, I love that. There's like this emerging emphasis put even on scientists like Neil deGrasse Tyson and just every walk of life now has kind of like these minor celebrities like Tony Hawk for skateboarding, right? Like even if you know nothing about skateboarding, you'll know Tony Hawk, right? I think that's like such a cool time that we're alive in human history where each interest in each thing has a person associated with it that kind of like helps lead it and helps be known for it, you know?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and it's like it's exactly that. It's whatever you are interested in. There's probably somebody who's at the top of their game, and do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
I play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, and
Us too, man.
yeah,
Us too.
but like there's like Dungeons and Dragons like celebrities almost, you know what I mean? Like I listen to some podcasts and they do go to these live shows and the crowds that they're attracting are just like, what?
They're wild, right? Like even like Harmon Quest, like the show, right? That came off of Daniel Harmon's podcast. It's wild that D&D's taken on that life. Kurt and I love D&D, man. Like we've been playing, it's actually funny, like the D&D group that we're a part of has been playing longer than any of our personal relationships in our life. Like I was like saying, I'm like, you guys have been in my life longer than my wife has, you know?
Yeah.
And that's saying something. It's like, you guys know me better than my wife. The only person that knows me probably more is my mom and dad and my brother.
Yeah, no, it's the same. It's like the D&D group that I've been playing with like for years and years now. Like,
Yeah.
so.
It's so good. Do you guys like find like your adventures start to bleed into each other? Like you start to like reference your other adventures into new ones and stuff?
Oh yeah, and like, because normally I'm the one who's DMing, so like,
Oh, so cool.
yeah, so I'll take like callback characters, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
fan favorites essentially from like our campaigns, and I'll bring them into my campaign and like repurpose them and stuff like that. And yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, like one of our favorite things to do on the road is play D&D. Like we'll just be driving, and like whoever's driving will get someone else to roll the dice for them, but they'll be the DM, you know, if they've already pre-canned the story. But it's just such a fun thing to do on the road, and I don't know. It's just such a team building experience.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It brings people closer for sure.
Yeah. I always tell people too, it's like public speaking. Like you want to improve your public speaking, like play some Dungeons and Dragons where like you have to make a speech on the spot. You have to like use charisma, because it's not just like rolling dice. It's actually like you have to create a character and then live in that character, you know? And so many of my friends that really struggled with that, I would invite them to our group to play D&D with us. And I would tell them, like, you want to get better, like, to do these presentations at work, like, play D&D. And then after a couple sessions, like, you'll feel probably a lot more comfortable about being able to speak on the spot and being more confident in your voice, you know?
Yeah, no, 100% agree. It's like, D&D is like it's been so beneficial just for like my mental health too, and like my creativity as well. Like, yeah, just the amount of different things that Dungeons and Dragons has added to my life is just unreal.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. What's that like saying? It's like the person who reads, the person who doesn't read only lives one life, and the person who reads lives 1,000. I feel like that's like the case for Dungeons and Dragons. Like you get to live 50 different lives, you know, and get to make so many different choices and get to be so many different people.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing is because all the characters that you really create are kind of like an extension of you too. You know what I mean? Like, so
yeah,
it's kind of like aspects of your personality taken to their most extremes, which is kind of neat, you know.
We actually came up with a premise in the Night Terrors that I really want to do. The tentative title is called Dungeons and Recordings, and Casey Lewis from The Evidence, he also owns Echo Base Studios, is like this incredible DM. And what we wanted to do, and it actually got optioned. It got picked up by Beta Force Carbon, who's like a bunch of video creators in Calgary here, and they've got funding for a bunch of different projects. They optioned this, and they're going to work with us on it. But what we want to do on the next album is create the songs ahead of time, like record them in our basement and send Casey the lyrics, and then have him create a custom campaign based around the songs themselves. And then before we go and record those songs, like we want to get like a cabin somewhere in the woods, and at night we want to play D&D based on the songs, and then in the day we want to record them and see if like this introspective look at the songs, like when we're forced to live the choices and live the themes, if they take on a different life, or if they feel the same, or how that would change our approach to actually creating that song. If that would change things, you know. And what we want to do is like do the whole adventure of it, like do maybe 9 songs or like a 6-song EP or how many songs we want to do. And then what we want to create is like the 9-song album, but we also want to get one of our friends who's like an arranger, a composer, to reinterpret the songs as if it was like Middle Ages. So like cover the songs, but in a whole different way. And then actually create like the campaign that would come with the album. So like you'd buy the campaign that you could like run yourself, like the adventure, and like you could like play like the medieval songs with the adventure itself. And I just thought it'd be like a really fun kind of like navel gazing introspective look at making an album, you know?
Yeah, no, that'd be super neat. It's like kind of taking the whole concept of a concept album to a new level.
Yeah. So I hope that's the next record we do. I've actually never told anyone about this in like any other interviews or anything. So this is the fresh idea. This would be the one. So
nice.
that'd be my dream come true.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I guess we should probably wrap this up here because my phone is about to die. So
phones.
Yeah. But so the album came out on October 23rd.
Yeah.
And it is called The Songs That Keep You Up at Night. Yeah. It's available everywhere. People can find it all platforms.
All platforms, anywhere the internet exists, so does that album.
Awesome. Cool. Well, is there any just kind of final thoughts you want to throw out there? Or?
No, other than this was a really fun conversation, man.
Yeah.
This is nice talking with you.
Yeah, no, I agree. This was awesome. Like, and again, this is like why I love doing this thing is like I get, perspectives on things from different people, and like, I mean, we just had a conversation about D&D, and this is supposed to be about music and whatnot.
Yeah, sorry, not sorry, everyone out there.
Yeah, no, exactly. If you listen to the podcast,
yeah, you know what's going to come down the pipe.
Yeah. So, I'll have all the links in the episode notes of where people can purchase the album, connect with you guys on social media and all that stuff. And,
awesome.
Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me.
Thanks so much, man. Honestly, it was my pleasure. It's nice now that you're my real friend and not just the one I listen to. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was great talking to you.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much.
Say, sometimes life ain't what you want it to be. Man, does it hurt? Yeah, it feels fair, but you can't stay sad. And if this isn't how you need it to be, then rearrange just to gauge, yeah. Let your brain from its cage, yeah. We were lost, now we're found. What journey was lost? No, I won't pay me back. Cash checks, shipwrecks, every love I've ever lived, and now I'm drowned in. Goddamn, it's confounding in the hell. Yeah, you know, if I'm still sleeping, don't ever wake me up. I said the one episode where Bob loses his soul and he can't row his boat. And I hate Oscars. I hit myself cutting lines and I never find my way out. Sometimes life ain't what you want it to be. Man, does it hurt? It feels bad, but you can't stay sad. And if this isn't how you need it to be, then rearrange, disengage, yeah. Let go, breathe from this cage, yeah. Yeah, you know, if I'm still sleeping, man, don't ever wake me up. I say, yeah, you know, if everything's the same, just know I'll never change. No, I'll never change, man. No, I'll never change, man. No, I'll never change, man. No, I'll never change. No, I'll never change, man. No, I'll never change, man. No, I'll never change, man. No, I'll never change. No, I'll never change.
If you like this episode of Groove Talk, why not leave a review? You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or pretty much anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Help us break through those evil algorithms and reach the most amount of glorious listeners that we possibly can. For up-to-date information on the show, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can find us at Froggy Style Productions. For more ways to support the show, visit fsproductions.ca.